All right, diving in. You guys really threw down a challenge this time, wanting us to break down Mel Robbins's The 5-Second Rule and find, well, I guess, the nuggets about courage and how to really tap into it.
Yeah, it's an interesting book for sure. And the whole premise is actually pretty simple.
Right, like deceptively simple. Five, four, three, two, one, draw. It's almost like a countdown to like break through procrastination or something.
Exactly. It's all about pushing past that fear and self-doubt that can really hold us back.
Okay, but for anyone who hasn't read the book, can we like back up a sec? What's the core idea here? I mean, why a countdown?
So Robbins, she basically argues that we all have this like reservoir of courage inside.
Mhm.
It's just, it gets buried under all this overthinking and hesitation, right?
Yeah.
So this countdown, it's like a tool to
Right.
blast through that mental barrier.
I remember there was something in the book about how it like interrupts negative thought patterns or something. Like
Yeah.
the science behind it.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just some motivational fluff. She gets into the neuroscience.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Explains that when you start counting backwards, it actually engages your prefrontal cortex,
Uh-huh.
which is the part of your brain responsible for decision making,
Right.
right? So instead of spiraling into anxiety,
Right.
you shift into action mode.
Wow. Wait, hold up. So there's like legit brain science backing this up. I thought it was more of a, motivational trick.
Nope. She even uses an awesome analogy of a rocket launch.
Okay.
You know how they do the countdown? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
He's just watching a commercial and like had this epiphany. What if we could launch ourselves into action the same way
Yeah.
before the doubts have time to creep in?
It's like outsmarting your inner critic before it can even butt in.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does this translate into like real life? I mean, most of us
Yeah.
aren't exactly launching rockets here, right?
Well, think about it. A lot of amazing discoveries, even like accidental inventions,
Hmm.
happen because someone acted on pure instinct. Like, boom, just went for it.
Okay.
The match, Velcro, even the Frappuccino at Starbucks.
What?
Yeah. All these things started because someone said, what if?
Oh.
And then just took that leap.
So you're saying those moments where you have a sudden urge to do something like, I don't know, sign up for a pottery class or finally call that friend you haven't spoken to in forever? That's our inner courage trying to break free.
Yeah, think of it like this, the 5-second rule. It's about seizing those little windows of opportunity, those 5-second windows before your overthinking takes over and talks you out of it.
Gotcha.
Like Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat on the bus.
Right.
That was a spontaneous act of courage, driven by that feeling like, this is it. The time is now.
Okay, so it's not just about those big, heroic actions. It's about recognizing those smaller, everyday moments where you choose to act, even if you're a little scared.
Precisely.
So it's like those baby steps, those tiny weightlifting reps building up to something bigger.
Yes. It's not always about achieving this huge outcome. It's about the act of taking action itself. Like Robbins points out, even if you don't get the exact result you wanted,
Yeah.
the simple act of trying, that builds confidence and self-worth.
That totally reminds me of the story she tells about her daughter Kendall and the whole audition anxiety thing.
Yeah.
Like that fear of not being good enough. I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Oh, for sure. It can be paralyzing. And Robbins reframes that fear in such a powerful way.
How so?
She emphasizes that failure isn't a judgment, it's feedback. It's about having the courage to show up, even if you suck at first, rather than letting fear keep you on the sidelines.
Wow. That's a pretty profound shift in perspective. Okay, but even knowing all this, it's still so easy to get trapped in that worry spiral, obsessing over things you can't control, worst case scenarios, all that.
Oh, I know.
Does she address that?
Oh, absolutely. She dives right into it. She cites this research showing that the biggest regret people have at the end of their lives, it's wishing they hadn't spent so much time worrying.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, imagine all that energy wasted on what ifs when we could have been taking action or just enjoying the present moment.
It's true. And I feel like Robbins is really good at bringing it back to her own experiences, making it relatable. Didn't she share something about getting caught in a worry spiral while dress shopping?
Yeah, with her daughter.
Yeah.
But here's the brilliant part. She uses the 5-second rule right then and there to snap herself out of it.
Hold up, how? Like in the middle of the mall?
Instead of dwelling on her worries, she asks herself, what am I grateful for this moment? What do I want to remember about this day?
So she just like interrupts that negative thought loop by choosing to focus on gratitude.
Yes, and she explains the science behind it. Gratitude actually changes our brain chemistry. It
Wow.
activates the part of the brain that releases dopamine, which is linked to pleasure and motivation. So in those 5 seconds, you can actually choose to feel better.
That's pretty amazing, like having a mental superpower to shift your mood just like that. But what about when that fear feels like physically overwhelming? Heart racing, palms sweating, the
Mm.
whole 9 yards.
Robbins tackles this crazy idea that fear and excitement
Okay.
are actually physiologically very similar. The difference is all in how our mind interprets those sensations.
Whoa, wait. So you're telling me my body might be reacting the same way to like public speaking as it would to riding a roller coaster?
It's possible. The book argues that if we can reframe those fear responses as excitement,
Okay.
we can actually use that energy, to propel us forward.
I love that. Like flipping the script on your fear.
Yeah.
Instead of running away, you use it as fuel. That's pretty powerful. I know Robbins is a pretty seasoned speaker herself. Does she still get those pre-talk jitters?
She admits she does, but she's learned to reframe them as excitement, and that changes the whole game.
Makes sense. It reminds me of that story about Quinn, her son, and his sleepover anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
She encourages him to think of those nervous butterflies as excitement.
It's amazing how a simple shift in perception can make such a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about those deep-seated fears, like fear of flying, speaking up in meetings, the kind that feel really ingrained?
Well, Robbins, she offers this powerful tool for those,
Yeah.
anchoring thoughts. It's about choosing to focus on a positive affirmation
Okay.
or a desired outcome instead of getting lost in those what-if doom spirals.
So instead of picturing the plane crashing, you picture yourself like arriving at your destination, that amazing vacation waiting for you.
Exactly. It's like creating this mental anchor to keep your mind from drifting into those fear-based stories.
She uses her own fear of flying as an example. Right.
Yeah, instead of picturing a crash, she focuses on those positive aspects of arriving,
Huh?
like reuniting with family or experiencing a new culture.
This anchoring technique, it sounds super helpful for anyone who struggles with those persistent fears,
Absolutely.
like a mental lifeline to hold on to when those negative thoughts start swirling. And it all ties back to that idea that confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you build.
Through action.
Exactly. Robbins tells that awesome story about the engineer at Cisco
Oh, yeah.
who was super shy, but he actually chased down the CEO on a bike path to share his ideas.
He had this burning desire to be heard,
Right.
and the 5-second rule gave him the push he needed.
It's like that reminder that sometimes the most courageous act is just taking that first step, however small.
And the more we practice those small acts of courage, the more confident we become.
We're like training our courage muscles.
Exactly, getting stronger with each rep.
Man, this deep dive is already blowing my mind. I'm ready to keep going. What other like golden nuggets does Robbins offer to help us, unlock those passions and really step into our potential?
Well, this is where things get really fascinating. She introduces this idea that we often box ourselves in based on these fixed ideas of who we are.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
She calls it free traits.
Free traits. Okay, now I'm really curious.
So it's like we all have these default settings, right? These personality traits we think are just like set in stone.
Yeah.
But Robbins, she argues that we can actually like act out of character, adopt traits that don't come naturally to go after those passions or reach a goal.
So like temporarily borrowing traits from someone who's, I don't know, more outgoing, more assertive, whatever you need in that moment.
Exactly. She even uses herself as an example. Robbins is like a self-proclaimed introvert,
Right.
but she's built this whole career as a public speaker.
Wow. Talk about walking the walk.
Right. It shows we're not limited by those labels.
That's actually really freeing. It's not about like denying who you are. It's about like expanding what you're capable of.
Exactly. And it all ties back to unlocking that true potential. We're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. But okay, how do we even figure out what those passions are in the first place?
Right. It's like staring at this blank canvas. All that potential, but no, like clear starting point.
It can feel overwhelming for sure. Robbins has some great advice on this. She says, tune into your curiosity. You know those things that just pique your interest, that you can't stop thinking about? Those are often like breadcrumbs leading to your passions.
So that urge to like go down a Wikipedia rabbit hole about, I don't know, ancient Egypt, that's not just procrastination.
Maybe not. It could be a clue.
Okay, interesting. So our curiosity is like a compass pointing us towards what really lights us up.
Precisely. And she also suggests paying attention to envy.
Envy.
Not in a toxic way, but those times when you feel that pang of jealousy When someone's living a life you admire, that often reveals our own unfulfilled desires.
Huh. That's a really interesting way to look at it. So instead of pushing away that envy, we can use it to learn about ourselves. Like, what does that person have that I secretly crave?
Exactly. It can provide amazing insights into your own passions and aspirations.
Yeah.
But, it's not enough to just daydream about it.
Right. You got to take action.
Robbins emphasizes that over and over. Take a class, try a new hobby, talk to people who are already doing what fascinates you.
She talks about Jo, right? The woman who worked as a banker in London,
Yeah.
but was totally in love with wine.
It started with a simple wine tasting class and eventually led to her switching careers, building this whole life around vineyards and vintages.
That's amazing. It proves that even those baby steps can lead to like some pretty big transformations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But so often we hesitate. We wait for the perfect time or permission from someone. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that.
Yeah.
It's like waiting for, I don't know, a sign from the universe or something.
Yeah. Robbins calls us out on that big time. Stop waiting, she says. Start acting, even if it feels scary or uncomfortable. Remember Todd, the guy who left law school to become a gym teacher?
Oh, yeah. The one who walked out mid-lecture. That was pretty epic.
It's the 5-second rule that gave him that push. He literally walked out of a tax law class, drove to a different university, and enrolled in their physical education program.
Talk about listening to your gut. It goes to show sometimes the most fulfilling path is the one that aligns with your true passion.
Even if it means making tough choices or going against what people expect of you.
And this kind of leads into another big theme in the book, right? Having those difficult conversations and relationships instead of putting them off forever.
Time is precious, And Robbins points out that we often regret the things we leave unsaid.
Especially when it comes to the people we love.
That story about her dad having a brain aneurysm totally out of the blue.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's a reminder that life can change in an instant.
It really makes you think.
And Robbins stresses that there's no right time to have those tough conversations or express how you feel. The time is now.
Easier said than done, though, right?
The 5-second rule can give you the courage to reach out to someone you've been avoiding or apologize for something or just tell someone you love them.
Those conversations, even when they're hard,
Yeah.
they can lead to deeper connections,
Exactly. Vulnerability and authenticity. That's the foundation of strong relationships.
It all comes back to that idea that you hold the power to create positive change, not just in your own life, but in the lives of people around you.
That brings us to what I think is the real heart of Robbins' message. The power of you.
It's like realizing you've had the keys to your own happiness all along.
And it's not about controlling everything around you. It's about taking ownership of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions,
Yeah, so breaking free from that autopilot mode and making conscious choices instead of just reacting to whatever life throws at you.
Right. And the 5-second rule, it's like that bridge between intention and action.
Really?
I mean, we've all been there wanting to make a change, but getting stuck in that hesitation, right?
And the book's full of these amazing stories about people using the 5-second rule to actually create that change. Quitting jobs, starting businesses, reconnecting with family, or just taking a chance on something scary,
And it shows that even small acts of courage can, ripple outward and change your whole life.
But let's be real for a sec. Sometimes you take that leap and, you stumble. You fall flat on your face. It's easy to get discouraged.
Oh, for sure. Robbins actually talks about James Dyson, the guy who invented those fancy vacuums. Did you know he created over 5,000 prototypes before hitting on the design that made him famous?
5,000. Seriously, I would
Yeah.
have given up after 5.
It shows that sticking with it, even when you fail over and over, can lead to those big breakthroughs.
Wow. Persistence is key.
Robbins emphasizes that it's not just for inventors, though. Like those setbacks we face, they're not roadblocks, they're detours. They can lead to something even better.
I like that. It's like that saying, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn.
Exactly. But even with that mindset, it's still so easy to fall into that analysis paralysis.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Overthinking everything to death, which usually ends with you doing nothing at all.
Ugh, it's the worst. Why do we do that to ourselves?
Robbins actually gets into the neurological side of things. She talks about this research by Antonio Damasio, who studied patients with damage to the part of their brain that processes emotions.
Okay.
And these folks, they could logically weigh pros and cons, but they were totally stuck when it came to making even simple decisions.
Really? So emotions are actually a crucial part of decision-making. That's fascinating.
It seems so. His research suggests that our feelings are like essential for navigating life.
Hmm.
Those gut instincts, those split-second urges, they can actually lead us in the right direction.
It's like we've been trained to dismiss those gut feelings as like irrational or impulsive,
Right.
but maybe they're actually our inner wisdom trying to speak up.
Robbins definitely encourages us to trust those instincts more.
Yeah.
Act on them, especially in those first 5 seconds before the doubts start flooding in.
It all goes back to that core message, right? That we have this power within us to change our lives.
One 5-second decision at a time.
It's pretty amazing to think that we're not just like pawns in this game of life. We can actually shape the game itself.
You're not a victim of your circumstances. You have agency.
So if someone's listening right now, what's like one 5-second decision they could make today that might, shift things in a positive direction?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that courage, it's not about the absence of fear.
Right.
It's about taking action even when you're afraid. And trust me, you have way more courage than you think.
Maybe it's getting out of bed when that alarm goes off instead of hitting snooze, or finally having that tough conversation you've been putting off, or signing up for that class that's been calling your name.
Those seemingly small moments,
Yeah.
they can be the start of something incredible.
This has been an awesome deep dive.
It really has.
So many practical tools and like mind shifts.
It's all about taking that first step and then the next and the next.
Embracing the challenge and the growth that comes with it.
Absolutely.
This has been the deep dive, and we hope it's given you the fuel to unlock your own courage and create a life that truly lights you up. Thanks for diving in with us.